Well, 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, home of me, Mark E. Bilson, was the first radio station in the Tri-Cities to ever broadcast a hockey game. We're going to continue that legacy when we air the Jets and Predators, playing for all of it, basically. Maybe not the Stanley Cup, but for the right to play for the Stanley Cup against the Vegas Golden Knights, and they're actually going to do it at a decent hour for a change. Here, the man who's been writing extraordinary columns in the Tennessean about this series and is joining us from the morning skate, I believe, is Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean. So let me ask you, anything breaking right now? How did the Predators look at the morning skate?
Well, I must be honest with you, Marky. Those optional skates, I don't look at those. So I didn't even go watch them skate around. But there's nothing breaking. It looks like Mike Fisher is not going to, play tonight. If he were to emerge tonight, that would be quite a.
If Mike Fisher were to play tonight, that would be quite the storyline, is what he's trying to tell us. And
exactly. I mean, that would be a stunner. So he should not be in tonight. I don't know. He got hurt on the first period of Monday's, Game 6 to extend the series. Don't know the extent or the duration, potential duration injury if they advance. But looks like it'll be Callie Rexrode centering the fourth line, and this is where having center depth is a great thing. And Scott Hartnell certainly has earned his way in the lineup permanently, I think, and then probably Ryan Hartman is the other forward. So there'll be a new look fourth line, but essentially it's Game 7 can't beat Game 7s, and it's just a really interesting series because the road team is 4-2 in this series and really have at times dominated the home team. So obviously the Predators hope that changes tonight. They've worked all year to have home ice in a game like this. But right now, they're only 3-3 in Bridgestone Arena in this postseason.
Well, of course, the fourth checking line is so important, especially when there's been so much criticism of the Predators' blue liners, defensemen. But you mentioned Scott Hartnell being then on the fourth line instead of Fisher. As historic a figure, as legendary as Fisher is, might you rather, though, have Hartnell on the line than Fisher if you had to have an either-or, considering the Predators' play in Games 6 and 4 when Hartnell has been in the lineup?
No, I mean, you still want centering that line. I mean, I think he's been really good.
Okay.
Series, but I think that, the either-or there would be Hartnell, Mika Salamaki, who I think will be out. Of course, in Game 4, Peter Laviolette took Kevin Fiala off the second line, put Hartnell there, which was quite a radical move, and it worked. And then, in the next game, Fiala's back in his normal spot, and that didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was Hartnell not being in the game at all. And I'm not saying that's why they lost 6-2. I mean, there's a lot more important things than a guy who plays 9 minutes, in a game. But I do think that Hartnell, especially the way he played in Game 6, I mean, he was finding people and hitting them. Big, clean, hard hits. And, he's a guy who can get in front of the net, too. So I think he's earned his way currently. If Fisher were available, it would be Fisher. It would be Hartnell. And actually, I believe it would be Callie Yarncroke as the other forward. And then Ryan Hartman and Mika Salamaki would both be fitting. But I think you go with Ryan Hartman in this situation over Salamaki. He does give you a little more risk because he takes a bad penalty here and there. But he also gives you an opportunity for speed and a guy who can actually put the puck in the net here and there.
Now, it's interesting. I know you just tweeted out that if the Predators are going to beat the Winnipeg Jets, they're going to have to do it by playing attacking hockey, not defensive hockey. And do you think that would allow a risk of having Mark Schieffel come and beat the Predators because he's played so well in Nashville, but then, shut out in the losses that the Jets endured in Winnipeg to the Predators? What's the risk reward there on playing more that sort of, less that close to the vest game and more the attacking style?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I know that you can look at in the last game and the game before that and say, well, look, they closed things down and, they played, it was more of a defensive game and it suited them. And I mean, I agree that you don't want to get in a total breakneck pace up and down the way to do it. In your own defensive zone, yeah, you don't want to turn the puck over. You want to cover the gaps. You want to be extremely focused and attentive to detail, but you don't want to play defense. And the way to not play defense is to do what you have done all year, which is turn it loose on people and outskate them and go attack them and try to score at them. So, I mean, it's a balance, but I think you can't be fooled by the last two games in Winnipeg. The Predators got that early lead, and I think the Jets played into their hands in both of those games.
We're talking to Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean, who's been covering this series as the Nashville Predators try to become eventually the first team in Tennessee to ever win a major professional sports championship. And, you talked about the aggressive play, getting the blue liners into the scoring. I mean, when the Predators won earlier in the series 2-1, game-winning goal scored by, PK Subban. But somebody who hasn't scored any goals is the captain, Roman Josi. And so let me ask, is the reason why this series is 7 games may be because the Predators have been playing too conservatively and Josi hasn't scored a goal yet?
Well, I do think that the Predators definitely, it's surprising that at this point in the playoffs that Ryan Ellis and Roman Josi don't have goals. Those guys are big parts of their attack. Now, Josi had his best game in Game 6. Of this series anyway, with 2 assists, and he looked more like him. I mean, he looked more like the captain of the team, the guy who really, even though PK Subban has been scoring, to me, the most skilled offensive defenseman on this team is Roman Josi. I mean, he's a terrific skater, and he just has a great feel. So, I don't know if it's too conservative, but I do think that maybe the concerns about the Jets with these guys, because this is the best collection of forwards in the NHL, in my opinion. And the top 2 lines are just, they're all-star lines. And so maybe the concerns there has dissuaded these Predators offensive from jumping into the play as much as they normally do. I think that's a fair, possible take on that. Again, it's that balance. I mean, they can't be non-factors offensively. This team is too reliant on them as triggermen, as guys who get offense started to just abandon it. And of course, they still maybe have to be a little more careful, a little more attentive, a little more, defensive-minded against this team. It is that it's like know when to go and when to not. But if they don't at times tonight go and take a calculated risk or two, then I don't think they're going to create a lot of great opportunities to score against Connor Hellebuyck because look, the Jets are going to, of course, be very focused on their defensive zone. They're going to be very focused on not letting the Predators get in front of the net. They've done a good job of that in stretches of the series. And the Jets know that if they can even just get the forecheck going and get pucks deep in the Predators zone, they can create opportunities.
But I want to ask this and change the subject a little bit here. And Jared Stillman, he's a sports talk show host in Nashville, so I got to love him. But Joe Rexrode, you just tweeted out when Jared Stillman hijacks a press conference. How did he hijack the press conference? We don't necessarily hear that much about that sort of stuff over in the Tri-Cities, and inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, I probably should have explained that tweet more, but Stillman, Stillman doesn't come to a lot of pressers. But today, he actually asked, he got his 3rd question, and Peter Laviolette actually said to him, that's your 3rd question. That's all for you. Which was, a rare moment of levity and fun for Peter Laviolette. I mean, of all days, for Peter Laviolette to have a little fun with the media, to see him do that on the day of Game 7 was something. But, I was just messing with Stillman. I enjoy messing with Stillman on Twitter. And, and frankly, when you get to a game like this, and you have 2 days between games, like by the time we get to the morning skate, everyone has said everything 3 times. So a lot of us writers sitting there like, all right, get this over with. Let's go and move on. Laviolette
I'm reminded of when back when I was in Pittsburgh and a kid, and I would listen to Myron Cope, who was in semi-retirement, and he didn't go to the Penguins press conferences. Steelers, yeah, but Penguins, no. And yet Scotty Bowman, who coached the Penguins their second Stanley Cup, whenever he had news to break, he would literally call Myron Cope's radio show as a caller. And you drive the traditional hockey media, I mean, a columnist like yourself, nuts, because although Cope was the #1 sports talk show host in town, the beat writers were, wait a minute here, he doesn't go to the games, we do, and all that. But they were old friends and such. So I'm reminded of that instance in the past with a couple of legends, really, in Scotty Bowman and Myron Cope, and now maybe a little bit similar. So different but similar going on in Nashville. Hey, I only got a minute left, so let me ask you this. Who's going to win the game tonight, Joe Rexrode?
Yeah, I figured you'd get around after that. I don't have a great feel. I mean, if I'm going percentages, I'll go 51-49 home team. I would pick the Predators like 3-2. I think that they've seen now in the last 3 games what works, and they've seen what happens when they don't handle adversity well. And I do think, as poorly as the home team has played at times, look, they'd much rather have this team in their building than any other place tonight. And I think they'll have the right approach to use it, but not let it get them overly emotional.
I will say this. It's not going to determine, obviously, who's going to win the Vezina Trophy to the best goaltender in the NHL. Goalie. But I do think whatever team comes out of the Western Conference to play for the Stanley Cup against either Washington or Tampa Bay, that goalie is going to be considered the best in the NHL. Whether it's Hellebuyck, Marc-Andre Fleury, or Rene. I really think that's the way we're going to see. So there's another interesting storyline. At least that's how I call it. I got a feeling about the Predators, so I'll take them 4-3, and Colin Coward is next. Thank you, Joe Rexrode.
Thank you, Mark.